Now, I don't know about y'all, but I'm with Bestie. I don't trust nobody that don't recognize T-Boy's voice on instant. Let's get into episode 3 and 4 of The Other Black Girl. Hey y'all, support this channel by smashing that like button. Your likes not only make my day, but they also tell YouTube that you also enjoy this content. Also, don't forget to hit the notification button. That way you can be alerted as soon as I drop a new episode. All right, y'all. So we are on episode 3 of The Other Black Girl. And much like episode 1, we are thrown back in time to 1976 in Newark. And we are thrown back to seeing these two black girls sitting on their fire escape, and one is getting her hair braided. And it is in that moment that we realize we are having a flashback of Kendra Ray Phillips and Diana Gordon. And if you remember from the last 2 episodes, Kendra Ray was the only Black female editor to ever work at Wagner Books in 1988. And she only edited one book to fame, which was Burning Heart, written by Diana Gordon. Kendra never worked there again and was never heard from again. And Diana is no longer writing. But somehow these two girls have been interconnected, and we find out essentially that they've been friends this entire time. Diana is braiding Kendra's hair, and Kendra is upset, and Diana is upset because Kendra is leaving. Diana's almost finished and she's calling Kendra impatient as she's, could see that Kendra is tender-headed and she's finishing up like the last part of her braid. Kendra says she cannot wait until she gets to Boston and that someone can do her hair without giving her crap. And it's one of those moments that you can see friends that are about to miss each other, but they're still having fun and having this, conversation about the fact that Kendra is leaving. Kendra doesn't understand, why she has to leave. And Diana knows what she wants to do. Kendra is headed to Harvard, and she says that she knew that Diana always wanted to be a writer, but she's got to find her way, and this is why she has to go. So we're really realizing at this moment that these two women have been besties, that they've been friends way longer than Diana and her had this relationship at Wagner Books. They clearly have been a support system for each other for as long as we can remember. And this gets us into like a foggy state because all we've known so far is that they created this one amazing opus and then one of them disappeared. We're transformed from this moment on the fire escape to Nella back in modern day as she's rereading the note that she saw in her bag when she was on leaving Wagner the other night. And the note said that it didn't have to be this way, to Kendra from Diana. What happened between these two? It's crazy. We don't know why is, one of them a recluse. What's with this obscurity? We got to know more. Nella's sitting in her apartment. She hears a knock at the door. And when she goes to the door, she opens it to find a manuscript at the door. She automatically remembers that Vera asked her to take the manuscript home and read it last night and she forgot. She automatically assumes that Hazel was the one that dropped it off. And it throws her off a bit because Hazel lives in a totally different part of the city. Hazel lives almost an hour train ride away. And the first thing I'm thinking is, girl, how do you know where I live to begin with? I mean, she doesn't know for sure it's Hazel, but she assumes it's her. And it's like, what are you doing knocking at my door at this time in the morning? What is going on with this manuscript that you left here? Hazel does feel it's a bit nice for her to do it, but again, just still throwing me off personally because I'm thinking like, girl, who takes a 2-hour car ride? Anybody finna ride the subway after work for over 2 hours to somebody's location and then come back? And Owen tries to come to the door to find out what's going on. And Nala tells him, she thinks Hazel dropped off the manuscript for her. It's a little bit weird. He says he thinks it's a nice thing. Nala just chalks up to Hazel being nice and she heads to work. Nala is on the train mocking up this manuscript as fast as she can because she forgot to take it home and Vera wants her notes this morning. Girl, I was transformed back in time If you have ever ridden the subway or public transportation, where are my Metro riders at? My New York subway Iron Horse riders, my DC Metro people, my Atlanta MARTA people, my L and Chicago and the New York PATH train commuters. I mean, I just was like transformed back to back in the day, working on homework, doing stuff while you were supposed to be doing it the night before, trying to get it done on your way to work, on your way to school. So it was a cute flashback that I had in that moment. Child, that was not the life. We was sitting on the train with markers and highlighters and pens, correcting papers, shuffling files on a daily commute. When I tell you that commute is just also a reminder, if you've ever lived in a metro city, of just like feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so much. You never know what's going to happen on the train or public transportation. You're just trying to get to work. Somebody got to throw a show. Somebody got to start a fight. Somebody got to have an argument. The daily ride to shuffle the crazies, to stuff yourself into train cars, work life really do be stressed. It is very ghetto. Anyway, Owen again suggests that, she's overthinking it and Hazel sort of playing back in her mind. You know, how would Nala even know where she live? Nala gets to work and learns that Hazel did, in fact, drop off the manuscript at her apartment last night. And she tells her, reluctantly, thank you, it was nice. Nala is surprised that Hazel went out of her way to get her this manuscript because they don't live close near each other. Hazel insists it wasn't really a problem because she was at a wine bar in a neighborhood called Ola's. And she even asked Nala, has she been there before? And Nala says she's heard of it, but it's a little bit pricey. So, she's only been there like maybe once. Hazel says, yeah, but it's a pretty cool place. And again, I'm still thrown off that Hazel know where Nala lives, acting like that's normal. Look, girl, even if we are work besties, we need to be easy with you showing up to my residence. I'm sorry, this is how I'm feeling about it. Anyway, Nala thanks her for the manuscript and she's standing up for her, the day before in the meeting. Because as we know, they had a little bit of a falling out when she felt like Hazel didn't have Nala's back. And last meeting, Hazel was the one that let Richard know that it was Nala's idea to have the sensitivity reading and that she was the one that had the forward thinking in terms of how to handle the Collins situation and not her boss. At that moment, they bond back together. Nala's giving Hazel a second chance. You can sort of see that she's coming around to liking her the same way that she did the first day that she met her. In walks Vera. Vera interrupts her and asks Nala if she has read the manuscript from last night. And Vera also tells Nala that she has somewhat of a headache. She had saying that she has one of the worst headaches she's ever had. And what's crazy with me with this like whole boss situation? It kills me that once people get assistants or anything like that, they act like they're so incapable of doing anything else. She's like, oh, this is the worst headache I've ever had. But girl, did you take anything before you got here? What makes bosses totally incapable? Like, girl, what were you going to do if I wasn't here? So she basically asked Nala, can she help get her some Advil or something for her head? Like, this is just horrible. She hates to, inconvenience her. If you hate to inconvenience me, you would have took yourself to CVS before you got here. Hazel offers to help instead because she says that Maisie, her boss, is not there yet. And child, when I tell you, did y'all peep the last episode when the little shade that Hazel and Vera kind of low-key throw at each other? You could just see that the light shade they have and the little feud they have going on. And I remember specifically when Hazel was getting hired and Nala was in the office meeting her for the first time, and Maisie said, you might end up meeting Vera later on. And Hazel said she already knew who Vera was because she had saw her in some spread of some magazine at this very beautiful home when she was showing her home. And Maisie felt the need to tell her that that home was a rental Airbnb. Very, very, very shady. And so while they're talking, Hazel reveals that now, Maisie's not there yet, so she could help out by going to get the aspirin. And Vera responds that it must be nice that time is just a construct for those of us whose trust fund kicks in at 16. Girl, when I tell you just the little messiness between them is just hilarious to see. At that moment, Hazel decides to get very messy. And this to me was red flag number one. But I don't know how Nala reads this. I feel like Nala in this moment did read that this was a red flag. Hazel decides to throw Maisie under the bus and tries to bond with Vera in this really interesting way, and reveals that Maisie has a doctor's appointment, in quotations, every Friday, and that the doctor has been making house calls lately to her boyfriend's apartment. And when I tell you that headache from Vera cleared up real quick, and she took that little piece of information in and was into the gossip in a quick minute, you can see a little bit that Nala is uncomfortable with the gossip, and she looks very surprised that Hazel shared that about her boss with Vera. And I think it was just very telling because, girl, if you are telling your boss's tea to your office, to her office enemy, and you're new, you're very messy. But it was interesting because in that moment, you realize that Vera feels a little bit more connected at that moment to Hazel and likes the little information that she's been giving. Now, I will say this, I do love a good multi generational office because the older seasoned office ladies drama be top tier. It'd be awesome. When you walk in, you be like, this one don't like that one. They be working together for so long, they know all each other's business. Honey, they be giving you information you don't even need to know all the time about who to watch out for, who was sleeping with who had an affair. It'd be a joy to listen to. But I try to keep myself a little clean and stick to myself. But sometimes you got to keep key in that little break room. So they head to the break room, and in the break room, Hazel invites Nala to a party. She says that she has a friend that works at Condé Nast and that they're having a huge party at the MoMA. And of course, we know Condé Nast is, a very beloved magazine company. Of course, they print and publish the infamous Vogue magazine. And she also mentions that this huge party is going to be at the Museum of Modern Art in obviously New York City, which is where they are. And let me tell you something. If you have never been to a museum party, they are lit, especially when you ain't got no money. If you live in New York or DC and you haven't done this already, or even if you have done this, if you have not done this, you better take advantage because museum parties and embassy parties are lit. They are also a great way to get free food, good cheap open bar, good music, and a great environment, and you really can meet amazing people. And that's something that Hazel alludes to Nala with, that if she's at this party, there are going to be people who read books, who are in publishing, who are in other worlds that she can connect with and really grow her career. Nala says she appreciated, but Vera has never let her leave this job before 6 p.m. And Hazel's figuring out a way that she maybe can try to change that situation. She's saying, we got to try to get to this party. This could be, monumental for both of us and for our careers. Hazel remembers and starts to tell Nala that Maisie is supposed to meet this editor that she's trying to poach and from another publisher. And so maybe if she drops that piece of information, it could be helpful. And she does take that opening. So when she sees Vera later on, she mentions to Vera that Maisie is going to be leaving early today because she wants to meet up with this author. And the author is somebody that she's meeting at a specific restaurant, at a certain time. Now, she decides that she's going to pitch this to Vera later on, and she's continuing to talk to Nala as they leave the break room. As they're leaving the break room, Maisie finally walks in and checks in with Vera to see whether or not she had a rough night. Vera says she wouldn't understand because she doesn't have a best-selling author. When I tell you the shade between these two is amazing, Hazel asked Nala, like, what is the drama between Vera and Maisie? Why do they have so many issues? And Nala says that when they were assistants, they were basically pitted against each other. And this is kind of when we get to see an insight into one of the other dynamics that flows throughout the show, which is women being pitted against each other in these environments to be extra competitive. Not really be encouraged to have the quote unquote lean in energy, however much that can really exist, and have each other's back. If we're not competing on a racial level, then it's on a gender level, or maybe even both. And they act like women can't succeed and occupy the same space. So she mentions that they were pitted against each other as editors, and they both got promoted to, as assistants, and they both got promoted to editor at the same time. And they put them both in like what they consider to be chick lit, or in women's books mostly. And anytime one of them succeeds, they feel as is at the expense of the other one. So it just helped to create this like toxic culture that persists with these different dynamics in the workplace where these women have to kind of outcompete each other all the time in a negative space. And when they really do like try to sabotage each other, they even show a scene where like Vera is printing something, she turns over her back, and I believe Maisie takes out the printer and throws it out. It was weird. It's just a crazy, crazy scenario. Hazel does see her opening. She tells Vera all about the Maisie meetup, and that makes Vera get up on her two good legs and head out early. So instead of having Nala stay, she tells Nala that she's going to leave early, that she's going to just head home, is what she tells her. But Nala just knows that she's leaving early. She apologizes for yesterday and she tells Nala that she can take off as soon as she has her work done. And of course, that frees Nala up for the night. And Nala gets ready to head out with Hazel and see what this party will bring. So Nala's done with work, and her and Hazel head into the bathroom to get ready for this party. And Nala is looking like her regular work self, and Hazel's like, "Look, you can't show up to this party with me looking like that." So she's like, "I'm gonna help you, pull it together." And all of a sudden, she's like, "Hey, we need to change your outfit." They change her into like a different, blazer. They kind of zhuzh up the outfit. Uh, Hazel ends up helping her out with some makeup. She finally puts some lipstick on her, some mascara, just to kind of jazz her up a little bit. Gives her like a little light face beat in the bathroom so that she doesn't look like her old plain Jane self. While they're in the bathroom chatting about the whole situation and how, you have to go into these places with confidence and what this party can do if Nala was to meet the right people there, Hazel keeps scratching her head incessantly. And it reminds you of the way Kendra Ray was scratching her head when she was scared and running to the elevator in 1988 and when she was on the subway. And at the beginning of this show when she was getting her hair braided. And it just got my mind to working because, the thriller aspect of this, novel turned film is always in our heads. We have to remind ourselves that this is like a little bit of a horror flick, a little bit of a dark side moment. And we get these little subtle reminders throughout the movie that this is not the average office drama. Hazel tells Nala, that they need to take some sort of deep oath. She asked her to rather give a sort of deep oath to her that she will take this win and its opportunity seriously. Like this is a chance for them to really shine. Nala worries that they did something really messed up by pitting Vera against Maisie to get out the office early. And Hazel says that they got to take these wins where they can get them. And that's when you realize that these like little dark reminders are starting to creep up more and more. Nala all of a sudden notices that Hazel is bleeding from the top of her locks. And Hazel tells her she's fine and it's not no real big deal, but we kind of hear this mystical music playing in the background and give us this really dark, otherworldly energy that's happening. Because why is this girl just automatically bleeding from the crown of her head? It's giving light Lovecraft Country. I really miss that show, y'all. I really, really, really hate HBO for canceling and messing up that show. Lovecraft Country was everything. If you have not seen it, please watch it on Max. It was incredible. Anyway, we're still looking at them in the bathroom, but then we get thrown back in time again. And this throwback is back to Kendra and Diana visiting Kendra in, I think, 1977 at Harvard. And of course, they're sitting in, Kendra's room. She's so happy for Diana to be there. She starts talking to Diana about the woes of being the only Black girl at the Ivies. She talks about how she doesn't feel like she completely fits in and she feels alone a lot of the time. It feels like the only Black person sometimes on campus. Excuse my voice. Diana says that, it's just white folks. And she says, maybe if she's not happy, she should consider transferring. Kendra says that she just can't give up like that and that Diana just doesn't understand. And I really got her in that moment. And I think this was also a really amazing point for them to show the complexity that happens when we are in spaces where we want to achieve and they're uninviting spaces, but we still have to reach our goals. There's just this, I think exhaustive nature in striving to achieve what's considered to be Black excellence. And then have to go out into this mess and go through so much just to get there. And that's why I'm happy like that there are like supportive Black spaces, via community and social and work industry that allow us to let our hair down and be ourselves. Because if you can see, like our ancestors and others who came before us really went through a lot just to preserve and get into spaces where they felt comfortable with each other. And you notice that a lot of times, when you talk about Ivy League schools, there's often like a Black student union. It'd be a mess too, but it's still our mess that exists on campus for students to feel like they have some type of safe space to, call home. A lot of times you'll see that's why a lot of Black kids on campus will get active in a D9 organization, because they feel some collective closeness to each other, because you can feel so alone, even on a campus that's very large, when you're one of the few minorities there. Now, personally, I feel like you should go where you're celebrated, but I absolutely understand people that have to take the opportunities that, they have where they can get them. For me, that opportunity was going to always be at HBCU. I was always in the move since a different world. It just wasn't in my cards to go to any other place where I feel like I was going to always have to be explaining or be outside of myself. I wanted to be embraced, and I went where I felt like I was celebrated, child. But I absolutely understand Black folks who have to go to PWIs, who have to take the opportunities that afford them, and who are following their dreams, wherever they may lead. And my heart goes out to the struggle that they have to deal with in those spaces. Anyway, let me get back to the show. So, as I told y'all, they head off to this party. And when I told y'all there was going to be free liquor and free drinks, free food, this is why we go. This is why we go. Anyway, they end the party for a little while. Hazel pretends to run into this guy that she says she knows. She says hey to him and says, "Hey, weren't you in London?" And he proceeds to say yes. And it also reminds me in that moment of how you go into these parties when you're, especially in your 20s and your 30s, and everybody's trying to show off in the room like they've been traveled somewhere, they've been somewhere. And so the dude is like, yeah, they don't even know each other. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry." He's like, he said, "Where did I know you from?" And she said, "Oh no, you're not Pharrell." Because he had this huge cowboy hat on, and she tried to make it seem like she knew him because she's trying to fit in. And Hazel's whole thing is fake it till you make it. And that's what she's trying to produce to Nala tonight, that you got to have confidence when you walk into these spaces and just act like you belong. They eventually get approached by a woman named Kate, who walks up and says that she's the host and wants to know who invited them. And Hazel makes up some story about knowing somebody somewhere, and they told her that she should, come to the event, and that the woman is currently, it's like some big wig in the city. And the lady says, "Oh yeah, I know her. She's out of town right now, and I didn't know, you knew her." And, Hazel proceeds to tell her that the two of them are editors at Wagner Books, which we know they're not editors, they're currently assistants. But she says that they need to basically present themselves as people who want to be in the job that they want to be in one day. The white woman proceeds to tell them that she didn't know Wagner had two Black editors, but she omits the word Black. So she just says, "I didn't know that Wagner had two editors." It was a weird moment. It was like, "Girl, where is this going?" And it gets awkward. They said, "Yeah, that's what the case is." Hazel then proceeds to kind of try to take the edge off of her continuing to talk about that. And she notices a piece of art in the room, and she says something impressive about it. The woman is impressed that Hazel knows who the artist may be and tells her she wants her to meet somebody else in the room. They take off, leaving Nala by herself to navigate this new space. Nala eyes another Black woman across the room, standing alone, and she approaches her. Once she approaches her, she realizes, um, that she seems familiar as she's talking with her. The woman introduces herself as Lena Jordan, and we realize that she is a producer of one of Hazel's favorite podcasts with a host named Jesse Watson. And Nala proceeds to say that she sent a DM before. She loves the show. She can't believe she's talking to one of her favorite, the producer of one of her favorite podcasts. And she says she's even sent him a DM before. And she says, "Oh, no, not like that. Like, I have a man. It's not that kind of thing." She said that she just loves his messaging. And she believes that there's a book inside of him waiting to be written. And Lena says she also believes that's the case. She finds out that Nala works for Wagner, but she said that she doesn't believe that that book is something that can be written at Wagner. And mainly because Wagner doesn't have a lot of people of color. And the last person that worked there was Kendra Ray Phillips, and that was in 1988. Nala vows that, she's trying to change the non-black editor issue. That's what her and Hazel are trying to do by working there. But Lena says she's pessimistic. She's been working in this business and media for 15 years, and she just really hasn't seen a change. And Homegirl really isn't wrong. Technically, in reality, again, like I said before, the publishing world and black folks is very, very limited. In 2019, there was a survey done by Lee and Low Books, and only 5% of the roles in publishing, that includes staff reviewers and agents, were black folks, y'all. The other side of that coin is completely disturbing as well, because New York Times did an article in 2018, and only 11% of the books published in 2018 were by people of color. And black authors only made up a fraction of that percentage. So imagine that only 11% of people of color were published authors in 2018, and black people made up a fraction of that 11%. So when she says it is dire out here, it is dire out here, because 2023 is when this show is set in modern day. So Nala's feeling discouraged. She's excited that she met her, but she's feeling discouraged about the idea that, another person that she would love to work with, she can't, because the opportunities are so limited. And specifically, Wagner has not been a place that has been as open. She heads over to the lobby, and she's sitting, because they're in the brownstone. So she's sitting on the steps inside the brownstone outside of the party. And she proceeds to try to call Hazel, but she only gets her voicemail because she doesn't know where Hazel took off with this woman. And she's staring at her phone, and all of a sudden she gets a call from an unknown number. And when she picks it up, it's a woman laughing, and she says Hazel, and the woman laughs at her calling Hazel, and she says like something like Hazel isn't really Hazel, and then tells her good luck. So then we are reminded again, this thriller is getting scary, because what is this weird voice that just called, said Hazel isn't Hazel, and then tells Nala good luck? What does that even mean? Before we can even start to think about the fact that there's something up with this Hazel girl, Hazel walks out and has a plate of food with her and is sitting on the steps trying to comfort Nala. She brings her some good grub. They're talking, and Nala confesses to her that she's worried about the fact that she may have wasted her time at Wagner. And we know that she talked about this before, because she's trying to figure out where can she get ahead in her career. She spent, I believe, 2 years here, and she's just not knowing where her place is. Hazel tries to encourage her and says, look, we don't have a Yanla here to help you fix your life. She said, if I was a Yanla, I would say something like, you have to have all the tools in your toolbox, or you have all the tools in your toolbox. You need to use them. You know how Yanla be on Oprah telling people, not on my watch, all the different stuff. So she really was trying to encourage her. And Nala wonders, why are you being so nice to me? I mean, technically, I'm your competition. And she says, girl, we got to stick together. You shine and I shine, period. And she says period with the T at the end. So Nala's feeling reinvigorated. She decides that she's going to head back in the party, and she's going to be as extroverted as she possibly can to get good opportunity out of this night. She and Hazel continue to call themselves editors. They sort of separate a little bit. And the next person that Nala walks up to, she mentions, hi, I'm from Wagner Books and I'm an editor there. So the woman says, oh, okay, do you have a business card? And Nala is about to answer her. And all of a sudden, she is interrupted by her real ass boss. Richard is at the same damn party, y'all. When I tell you I was high and low-key embarrassed for her, child, how you fitting to get caught by your boss lying about your job at something that you was supposed to be at early anyway? And Richard says in response to the woman that, he thinks she might have run out of cards or something like that. It was just really embarrassing. He asked to talk to her outside. Anyway, when she gets outside, Nala is embarrassed. She's about to start apologizing. And Richard says that he's actually impressed. He tells her it's really ballsy, and he wants to know, if she was an editor, what would be her first project? So this actually worked out in her favor. He thinks that she was kind of brave to be out here, even if she was pretending to be somebody she wasn't. And he really wants to know, like, hey, if you got this job, what would you really produce for us? She starts to passionately tell him about how she really loved Burning Heart, and it was a life changer for her. and she would love to see them do a reboot of the book. And obviously, she tells him the same breakdown she thought about the project. She even says, if you really want to get serious about this, I already have a presentation made if he's interested. And this is why I really, really enjoy this show. It is so well written, because if you know one thing about corporate bosses, especially people that work in media and work around any creative work, honey, they want the bottom line up front. And it was so awesome in that moment, because a lot of times folks are really busy and your ideas may be very cute. But when she mentioned that she even had the P&E charts, she wants to let him know, look, I know y'all care about profit and earnings, and it's adorable to want to write this to relaunch this book and all of that. But what pays for the lights to stay on is that money comes in once we do that. So I love how they just show the realness of that moment, because yes, it's great to just say I'm passionate, I love to read books, but honestly, if them books don't sell, we ain't got no jobs. So after all this time, she mentions how much she loves the book, and she just thinks it'll be great if Diana wrote the foreword or Kendra wrote the foreword. And Richard kind of tells her that it's pretty much a non-starter. He does, however, say that after all this time being in business, that burning heart is the thing that he is most proud of in his career. But he says he thinks it's not going to happen. It's a regret because Kendra is just not, she's not available. He says that as for Kendra, she's his biggest regret. He said a couple of weeks after the book came out, they found her bag and her ID on a subway platform. And this is the first time that Nala's hearing anything about Kendra's disappearance or her being a recluse. Because remember, we were told that she was a recluse and she, went off into obscurity. At least that's what Vera stated. And Vera used to work for her as her assistant. Richard is the first person to tell her that he was told that, they found her bag and ID on a subway platform. And for the most part, it's sort of been verified that she took her own life. I don't trust his emotions around this situation. And we kind of know that he's shady in this moment. Something about how he was talking about the story just gave off that he is not to be trusted. He said no one had ever heard from her again, and that was the official story. Richard believes that she took her own life, and he said it actually broke his heart. He does, however, tell Nala that he wants to hear more of her idea tomorrow anyway. And again, we are transported back in time one more moment. And it is in 1985. So this is past the hair braiding, y'all. This is past the Harvard visit. And we are now dealing with the early 20s of Diana and Kendra. And Kendra is now working at Wagner Books. And this is 1985. So this is 3 years before she disappeared. And when when we're hoisted back into this throwback, we're looking at the big 1980s hair, and we're talking about shoulder pads and colorful sweaters and clothes. And Diana is actually visiting Kendra at work. And Kendra's a little bit pissed that Diana showed up out of nowhere. She says that she can't just show up on her. She can't just bring sandwiches because, Diana showed up with the little Ziploc sandwiches for them to eat outside. And she says she just can't leave for lunch. Like, she's in this competitive environment. She's the only Black woman working here. She can't just make mistakes. But as she is saying all of this, Richard gets off the elevator. And this is a younger Richard, so he doesn't look like the Richard we've been seeing. But Diana does recognize him. And Diana shouts out his name. And Kendra is completely embarrassed because she was already trying to get her friend to leave because she felt like she don't have the opportunity to make a lot of mistakes. So you yelling at my boss and the founder of this company is not a good thing. But it stops Richard in his tracks. He says hello. She introduces herself, and she said that she's a friend of Kendra's, and Kendra mentions that she's also an author. And she says, you know how lucky, so Diana says, you know how lucky you are to have my friend. She's incredible. She's this amazing woman, and she's going to be an amazing editor for you. And he's like, yes, I do know how lucky I am to have her here. And he says, well, who are you? And she says, well, my name is Diana. I'm an author. He says, are you a good writer? And Kendra said, she's a mix between, I can't remember what exactly she said again. I want to say she said Morrison and Butler, but she might have said like another author. I can't remember who she said she was a mixture of, but she gives some really good authors' names as a mixture. Richard says, well, hey, why don't we have lunch and discuss it? Give me a second. are you open to going to have lunch and we can talk about you as an author and possibly a future of you working with us. So it's like an interesting little like win-win. He says, let me be, I'll be right back. As they're waiting for him to come back, Kendra pulls Diana to the side and says, hey, look, were you really here to have lunch with me or were you trying to here to pitch yourself? And she's like, no, I was here to have lunch with you. But either way, I just got you a win-win. We're going to have lunch with your boss right now. You weren't going to do that. You were going back to your desk. Now you're sitting down with your boss, possibly pitching him an idea for a book. And it's a win-win for both of us because he also was semi-interested in what I was doing. And at that moment, Kendra kind of realizes that Diana is right and she's less upset with her. We fast forward back into modern day and we realize that, again, so much has transpired with these individual women. And it makes you wonder, what Kendra's feelings were on, how she felt about her and how she felt about Diana with so much of the stuff that was going on with them. You constantly wonder, like, why is there so much flack with these two women with the back and forth? It's almost as if she doesn't trust her friend on certain things. And it's weird because they're they've known each other for as long as they have, and for some reason Kendra's very uptight. And I understand being the only Black woman in a lot of situations, but if you trust this woman and you feel like she's had your back, why do you act so, you know messed up with her or make her feel like she's not trying to understand you? That part I really don't understand about Kendra. And I didn't really understand, you know, that situation when it came to like how she constantly treats Diana when Diana comes to support her, when she comes to encourage her and to like push her to be like her best self or to, I don't know, pitch herself or just get outside her window. So in the present day, Hazel tells Nala that she sees so much potential in her that needs to be unlocked. And you kind of get a familiar connection to what we just talked about when it comes to Kendra and Diana. Nala thinks that she's crazy, and Hazel thinks that she's just lost because, she's been the solo woman in the office. She's been the only person, there for so long, and she hasn't really had a support system. And she's finally happy that somebody else is there that sees her. And they decide to go get food. And they're outside of the party at this point talking as they're hailing a cab. We notice that when they're getting in the cab, there is like a BMW or Mercedes behind them that's like kind of trailing the cab. And it's just weirdly sitting behind the cab, not moving. And it's really, really like late at night. So it's like, why is it moving? Because there's no other cars on the street. And we're zoomed in and we realize that it's Richard in his car. And he's on the phone and he tells someone that that they need to meet up because some things have changed. And that was when we knew that there was something more going on to this Richard and Kendra story that we're just not aware of. So, episode 4, Nala's bestie Malika is checking up on her and she kind of crashes into this yoga session. And let me tell y'all something. I'm all for yoga, but this yoga session that they had where people's feet was touching and they was doing this group stretching and stuff, and it was hot and sweaty, it's a no-go for me. No. I like the little solo yoga where we stay on our own mats and we do our own stretches and you just have me the little yoga bricks. I don't want to be touching nobody's feet at the bottom of their sweaty palms and none of that, honey. Anyway, they're in the yoga session and when they walk out, Michaela is complimenting Nala on her visual because Nala has kept up with some of the things that Hazel did for her when they were getting ready for the party. The girl started wearing lipstick, started taking care of herself a little bit better, started doing her eyebrows a little bit more, although Michaela feels like she could be doing more. I'm sorry, Malika, I keep saying Michaela. And she contributes a lot of Nala's visual changes to Hazel. And she kind of wonders why all of a sudden Nala is changing because as her best friend, she's been pointing out things for years. And Nala has yet to make any of those changes. But now all of a sudden you upgraded now that this new girl is in her life. And Nala says, positive is a positive. Like, I really, really like her, and I'm really starting to feel her again as being, a really good friend at work, and for us to get even closer outside of work. And I really want all of us to be friends. And I think that it would be great if we had dinner. And when I tell you, Malika's face was not feeling that at all, and I completely identify. What is this situation with people who always want to make you be best friends with their new friend and all of that? I want to see what's like, look, if we organically connect, it is cool. But I am kind of a semi-territorial friend to a certain degree until I get to know the other person. Like I said, if we all connect up and realize we really enjoy each other's company, and when it's the three of us, it's cool. But I hate when people try to force new people on you. Like, we supposed to all just be besties because you cool with her and I'm cool with her. Girl, no. This is a two-way street until I decided it's a three-way street, and it may never be a three-way street, and you got to be okay with that. Like, we could all be cordial and keep in the same space, so just stop trying to force these relationships. It reminds me of, if y'all watch Married to Medicine, how I feel like Dr. Jackie constantly tried to force Simone and Dr. Heavenly together, and it was clear that they just don't really connect like that for real, for real. Like, I think Simone tolerates Heavenly, and I think she could be around her, but it's not her cup of tea to always be around her the way Jackie is, and vice versa. And I think, Heavenly's with it if Jackie is with it, but you could just tell Simone, like, look, girl, if we good when we good. Like, you don't have to force it. We've been friends for, 40 plus 30 years before you even met this lady. Like, it's okay for us to have separate friends and to have friends that we kind of connect with together, but stop trying to force these relationships. I'm not the woman up to everybody quickly type. So Nala says, she thinks it's a great idea if they can bond and get together. She would love both of her really close friends to be friends. So when Nala gets to work, she invites Hazel over for dinner with Owen and Malika. And Vera comes by her desk and interrupts to ask Nala to print off two copies of a document, and to come, to her office. And so they sit down and they're going over Colin's sensitivity read. And if y'all remember from episodes 1 and 2, I'm about to say seasons, like we only in one season. Episodes 1 and 2, Nala is the one that suggested that they have a sensitivity reader go over the book to make sure that, things were positive and that the readers would receive it well, and that Colin wasn't offending anybody that would end up having a backlash back on the book. Because remember, the black character to her was just not, it wasn't a lot of sensitivity given to the black character, and she felt like it was kind of offensive. So they got their notes back, and one of the things that the sensitivity reader says is that they cannot use the word crazy anymore, and that the word is described as ableist, and that is offensive. And, Vera's saying, oh gosh, this is going to be one of those things. We have to chop so much about this book, but we have to be able to sell this book. And if we have to cut too much language out, or we have too much language that is, considered to be problematic, it can make the context of the book change and it not sell well. And she's just starting to stress up. And so she just says that, maybe we need to just not go through these things individually and just sort of summarize everything to see what everybody thinks. And Nala agrees that writing a memo summarizing everything was probably best. While they're having this conversation going over the notes for Colin's book, Sophie, that's the weird coworker that kept bothering Nala in the beginning about being an ally and talking to her about her cats. Anyway, she knocks on the door to say that Richard wants to see you. And so Vera is about to say, okay, but she means Nala. And Vera is very shocked, y'all. That was not a visual that we saw coming. When she said Nala and not Vera, Vera's face was like, what the hell he want to see you for? It was that kind of moment. And so Nala heads down to Richard's office. He then talks to her because they just saw each other the other night. So remember, he said he wanted to see her about her idea. He said he was very inspired by their conversation, and he wanted her to expand, more on what she was talking about. And he even asked her, how would she feel about meeting Diana Gordon? And Nala's like, mind is blown when he's saying she can meet Diana. And then he turns her around and Diana is right behind her. And y'all, when I say Garcelle Beauvais was sitting on that couch, a vision in lavender, to my fly lavender pantsuit, beautiful lavender bag. Sis was laid out in the light purple, and I was loving it because y'all know that's my favorite color. And Diana is sitting right behind Nala, and Nala is starstruck, honey. Not just from that glowing outfit, but she's a huge fan of Burning Heart, and here's the woman that wrote it. So Nala is surprised that, Diana is sitting behind her, and she is just like without words. Richard tells her, Diana, that Nala is one of the best assistants that he's had, and that he thinks that her talent will make her not, and be an assistant for, that much longer. And he reveals to Diana that Nala really wants to, work with her. And he's thinking about his next, her next project for Wagner. He would love for Nala to be the person working with her. Richard asked Sophie to gather like all the editors in the room. He wants Nala and Hazel to also be in the room. And Nala rushes over to Hazel before they get into the conference room, and she's like, "Oh my God, Diana Wagner was in his office." Like, she's so hyped, telling her everything about the meetup. During the meeting, they start, pitching out ideas for something new that Diana can do. Because Diana hasn't written, I think, since Burning Heart for the most part. And so Richard is saying like he really wants to do a new project with her and let all the editors kind of pitch ideas to her. So Vera, Nala's boss, says that she thinks that Diana should think about doing some type of like narrative cookbook. I don't know what the hell that meant. I guess story-based cookbook. So maybe that's what it means. Like, she would tell stories, let's say from her childhood, and then like talk about, maybe they would do a cookbook with like maybe meals that she remembers that were made. But Diana says, "Look, I don't cook, girl, so that's not going to work for me." And then Maisie, who Hazel works for, says that she doesn't cook either. So they're just throwing in a little bit more shade and saying that that's not a good idea. Another guy says that, he throws out ideas, other people throw out ideas, and Diana just doesn't seem that impressed by any of them. Nala again throws out her re-release of, Burning Heart, and she starts bringing up all the different things that she loves about it. She talks about how the foreword could be by, by Diana, or they could have some type of, you know, commemorative moment. She talks about cover art and how they could launch it, and everything about the idea Diana thinks is very good. She thinks it's a smart idea, but she says that it's a no-go for her. She said that the fact that Kendra Ray and the drama that went down with it is just too painful for her to revisit it, and she doesn't want to go back in time. So Nala is really disappointed, y'all, because this is her big, big, big feeling. She loved this book. This was her big pitch to the actual person that wrote the book. She's devastated by the idea that this woman is just not wanting to do this re-release when this book really was so transformative for her. So she goes into the bathroom. She's in utter, embarrassment. She doesn't, know what to do or what she should say next. And in walks Diana. She immediately starts to try to apologize to Diana about the pitch, and felt like maybe she could have been insensitive to her because of the fact that, it's Kendra Ray was involved and it's such a sensitive area. And Diana says, "Well, you really don't have to apologize, even though I'm not feeling the re-release. It was one of the best ideas in the room. You really thought everything through, and everybody was just giving me kind of nothing." And as Diana's talking to her about this, she is greasing her hair. Because Diana has like a very long, I would say, a sewing, and she's greasing the part of her sewing that's exposed. And again, it made me wonder about all these hair scratching moments and if these are interrelated, and, what will come from that. But I also just thought it was really cool that it was a very authentic ass Black moment for her to be greasing her scalp and have a little mini grease in her hair. So she goes on to tell Nala that even though she's not down with her book idea, she thought that she had real guts to show her, to at least pitch the idea, and that she really is impressed by her. And she said that, you have what it takes, but you just need like a little bit of polish to you. And she actually invites her to her place so that she can, mentor her a little bit. And of course, Nala is ecstatic. Of course, Nala is excited to be invited to her mentor spot, and that's where she heads the next day. She heads over to Diana's place, and she gets a text as she's walking into Diana's apartment from Hazel saying, have a good time, have fun. And when I tell you, Diana's home is gorgeous and everything you think when you think of a high rise view in New York City, I mean, is bad bitch status. It's everything. Like, I think her place overlooked Central Park, and her terrace was to die for. Like, the expansive view, the inside of the decor is pretty as well. As well decorated, beautiful bookshelves, design. It is an epic architectural digest gem. It's gorgeous. Diana says that, they start to have conversations, and Diana got like Luther playing in the background. She got like old, like 1980s, like late 1980s R&B playing. It's just giving black girl flyness. I mean, sisters in a Hanifa robe. What can I say? Like, it's giving all the things it needs to give for rich black auntie. And Diana starts talking to her about, her time when she was at Wagner, and, talking a little bit now about her experiences. Diana says that Vera took it literal when they said that you should dress for the job that you want. And, she's telling her like little stories she knew, and how Vera went through this weird period where she dressed and looked like Richard. Nala again apologizes about the whole Kendra Ray situation. And Diana says, you don't have to apologize for it. I know your heart was in the right place. I don't care what that lady said, and I don't care how much Luther was playing in the background. Richard and Diana did something to Kendra, y'all. I don't know what it is, but it's just, they're just not trustworthy. And I know that's the person he was calling in the car when he said, we got something, that plans have changed. Something ain't right about that situation. Anyway, Nala's super excited, and she ends up texting Malika when, she's at Kendra's place, to just say how like geek she is. And over at their house, because, Nala and Owen live together, and Malika and Owen are at the house, and Owen is cooking paella, and that's what they're gonna serve for the dinner between Malika, Nala, Hazel, and Owen. But right now, it's just the bestie and the boyfriend at the house, and they're joking, having a good time, hanging out like they probably always do, ready to get the food together. Owen trying to figure out what to do. Malika barely helping him with the food situation, and then they hear a knock at the door. Um, she Before they answer the door, Owen tells Malika that Nala is obsessed with Diana, and so it's a dream come true that she's able to do this. And I don't know, Malika's just not, feeling the situation a bit. But she says that she'll be open and be a good friend. Owen hears the door knock. He goes and he runs to the door, and it's Hazel at the door. Hazel walks in, and she's having a seat. And Owen kind of goes back to the kitchen, and he left Hazel and Malika out there on the couches by themselves, and they're talking. And when I tell you, Malika does not care for Hazel. A part of it is the fact that she is Nala's best friend, and here's this other girl coming in and try to be her friend so quick, and she don't trust that. There's a little bit of jealousy, but just is something that she's not feeling about her. And, they start having a conversation. And of course, again, Owen mentions that, he's so excited for her because she's getting this opportunity and how much she loves Diana. And, Malika asks Hazel, how do you feel about it? Because aren't you both obsessed with Diana? Aren't you feeling some kind of way about the fact that she's getting this opportunity to hang out with her and you're not? And Hazel said that, she's not jealous like that. That's not her style. And that she's happy that, this good thing could happen for her friend. And that's how she operates. Malika is not feeling her from that. She doesn't trust her as a friend. And she ends up texting Nala and says, girl, when are you getting here? So back at Diana's, her and Nala are she's looking at pictures while Diana's kind of walking around looking for something. And she thinks she hears something nearby. But before she can kind of like walk further down and towards Diana's house, Diana, returns back from wherever she was, and she says that she wants Nala to look at something that she bought her. And Nala looks through some pictures, and she suggests doing a memoir instead of a re-release, because we know that Diana is not for the re-release. As she's looking through some of the pictures, she says, hey, have you ever thought about that? And Nala looks through the pictures and she's feeling it. Diana said that she always thought about telling her own story, but she never felt the time is right. Maybe it is right now that Nala is there and there's another Black editor there. Maybe she feels comfortable bringing that idea. She says that she can discuss the details with Richard on Monday. And, we kind of notice that Nala ends up, exiting out the doorway. Nala heads back to her place and she finally meets up with Owen, Hazel, and Malika. And I don't know, they having this conversation as Nala walks in about, where they gets the couch from. Hazel's just having small talk because it's getting weird. You know, Owen's trying to watch the paella, but Michaela's not feeling her, or Malika's not feeling her. I keep saying Michaela. And Hazel's trying to make small talk. So she asks Owen where he got the couch from. He says West Elm or CB2. I never understood people with West Elm and CB2 furniture. It feels it's something about it that's super pretentious. I don't know. But the obsession is there. And I just don't get about the plain Jane. But she's asking, just making small talk. Nala comes in, tries to make it a little bit easier. Is happy everybody's getting along and just having conversation. She tries to make it easy because she sees that Malika's not really making it the easiest for Hazel, and they just start having conversation. Hazel starts doing the extra compliments again, and she compliments Malika on her TLC t-shirt. And she says that TLC was actually her favorite girl group of all time. And Malika says, okay, rest in peace, Lisa Lopez. And she says, TLC was before their time. And, Bestie agrees and is like, okay, all right, maybe that's a little something. I don't know. You came out of nowhere with it, but I'll take it. So Nala enjoys the energy that's going on. She really wants them to be friends, child. So she's convinces Owen they need to go to the store for some particular reason. Owen's like, okay, but I'm cooking. So he said, just take care of the paella so it don't burn. And so Hazel's like, oh, I heard what you said, like a couple more stirs and it should be good. He's like, yeah. Nala wants to get them get out the house so that they can try to bond a little bit more because she thinks she made some type of headway with them. But child, that was the wrong idea because when she heads to the store, you can tell like Malika's still not feeling her. She says she is not buying this fake best friend energy. She thinks Hazel is up to something and she don't trust her. So Hazel's like, girl, you just looking for something to be a problem. I have no issues with this. And you need to get over the situation. We're going to be friends. We work together. And she lets her know, like, you're not fitting to stop this train from moving. So let it go. And as they're talking, TLC's Baby, Baby, Baby is playing in the background. And all of a sudden, Hazel says, I really like this song. Who is this? And Malika is like, what? Be fucking for real. You literally just said this was your favorite girl group of all time, and now you don't even know that this is TLC. She says, look, I know I don't mess with you. I don't trust you, and I'm definitely speaking up. So when Nala gets back, hey, Malika is like, we need to talk. So they head to the bathroom, and she's like, look, this girl is not real. Like, she is definitely fake as hell. I'm not feeling her. She didn't even know who TLC was. And she said TLC was her group. And Nala is over it. She's like, look, I'm going to have friends that's not just you. It just can't be us all the time. Like, I'm going to have my own friends. And you can't really stop that situation. Like, you have to accept that I'm going to be friends with whoever I want to be friends with. And she's like, all right, cool. Like, like, go ahead. You know what I'm saying? I'm out. I tried to warn you. Like, I'm good. We're still good. But like, I'm just going to watch when you fall on your face with this girl. So she's like, look, I'm out of here. She heads to the kitchen and gets a container to go. And she's like, look, I ain't leaving before I get some of this meal because I didn't waited all night for it to be cooked. So she grabs some of the paella and she heads out of the apartment. Later on, Nala tries to text her and see how things are going, but she doesn't respond. The next day, Nala visits her at work, and we find out that Malika works at like a salon. So she like works at a salon, and that's why she's always talking about Nala, making sure she got her eyebrows done and her hair done. They sort of piece it out. They agree to get back there a little before, and Nala says, "Look, I'm not trying to share you with nobody like that, but I really don't like being forced with people, and I don't trust that girl. But you're still my best friend. I'm gonna still love you regardless, and I'll be here when things fall apart between you and Hazel because I know that they will." And so Nala says, cool, we're back good. And that's what it is. She goes back to work. And as she heads to work, Nala tells, and Diana that she appreciates her for believing in her because now Diana is meeting with Richard. And Diana says that she would like to bring Diana says that she would love to work with her on her memoir. And, Richard approves it. And Nala then says that she would like to bring Hazel onto the project. And Diana said, well, look, I'm giving you this opportunity. I thought you'd be thrilled, that we would have more time alone. Not that you would want to bring somebody else onto the project. And Nala says, well, I am thrilled about this, but Hazel is the one that convinced me to speak to Richard about the book in the first place and about the relaunch. And I just feel like, she kind of was giving her credit for it in a lot of ways. And, that is true. Hazel did push her to want to be a part of the book. And Nala says that, you know, she's not trying to give her too much credit, but she did something for that to make it happen. And she said that she absolutely wants to be a success in the literary world, but she doesn't want to be succeeding if it means that she's going to be the only one succeeding. And that was an amazing way to sort of take a full circle moment about your career and life, especially as a Black person succeeding. You hopefully hope that you can bring along as many people as possible in any situation that you're in to help them better their lives and to advance folks to a place that they haven't been in before. And the goal is always to open up doors for other people that are just like you. So I love that Nala said that. And Diana says, okay, well, if this is what you want, let her know that she's also going to be a part of the project. And Nala is super hyped and rushes over to, tell Hazel, all the good stuff. Vera catches Nala before she runs over there and lets her know, like, don't send out a memo to Colin to handle the sensitivity thing. She's going to, talk to Colin herself. And, Nala says, cool. The next thing you know, we see Hazel walking in to Malika's salon. Now, Malika doesn't own a salon. She works there and she's at the front desk, I guess greeting any customers that would come in. So she's shocked to see Hazel there. And Hazel says basically to Malika, like, look, I don't know what your problem is, but please understand that you don't want to fuck with me. Essentially, she says, like, we are, like, you don't know what you're messing with. She says she's not going anywhere and that she really needs to rethink how she approaches her. Girl, when I tell you I was shaking in my boots, this girl made an appointment just to show up to the bestie's job, just to threaten her in the situation. And you're like, what is going on? Because now it's like, oh, she's on Bestie's back. So she clearly knew that she talked to Nala and she was letting her know, like, look, if you get in between whatever I'm trying to do with this girl, you're going to be a mistake. You're going to be sorry. We then see Nala on the subway and she's sitting down and we see the lady that we've seen for like the first two episodes sitting next to her with this really short fro that's been in this hoodie that's been mysteriously appearing here and there. And she even walked past Nala and Malika when they were leaving the yoga place, but Nala couldn't place her, but she recognized her face again, but she didn't. The lady walked so quickly, she didn't even say anything. So she finally sits down next to her and she tells her that Hazel is not Hazel and her name is actually Eva. She puts this piece of paper in Nala's purse and then she rushes off the train really fast. Nala tries to follow her and she just throws the paper in there and then that's it. Nala checks the paper and it says, meet me tomorrow at 742 Perry Street at 5 p.m. Y'all, this was the best episode, I feel like, of the four because it gets us faster to that story of where is this whole narrative leading us to. We got 10 episodes. Episode 4 gave us a lot of the mysterious juice that we really, really wanted to keep this thriller going. And we damn sure want to know what's going to happen at Perry Street at 5 p.m.